Woohoo! There we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we're comparing the Honda Civic Type R, the FL5, the most hardcore Honda Civic that you can buy, to the most hardcore GR Corolla, the Morizo edition, on track. Let's see how they compare.
Traction control off, and we are in plus R mode. All right, comparing the Civic Type R to the GR Corolla Morizo. This car feels larger, it feels longer, because it is, which benefits the vehicle in terms of practicality. But in terms of driving dynamics, it depends on what you prefer. They both feel very stable, but the GR Corolla comes across as a little bit more tossable, a little bit more rally car. Both have fantastic inputs. I see the steering on both cars, it's not their strong suit. Not in the sense of their actual speed or weighting or anything like that, but with the Civic Type R, you're gonna get some torque steer because all the power is going to those front wheels. And with the GR Corolla, it's all-wheel drive, front wheel biased. And both tend to lack a bit of that steering feedback that I would want when I'm trying to get a sense for what the front wheels are doing with the car. I mean, it's there, but not as prominent in some other vehicles. Oops, pressing some buttons accidentally.
The inputs are so well dialed in classic Honda fashion. Steering and transmission are both good, but the transmission is nowhere near as good as something like an S2000 or an NSX NA1. Yeah, see, the torque steer is very much there. But it is pretty ridiculous how much power this thing can put down with a front-wheel drive setup. It's some wizardry that Honda has done, because front-wheel drive should not be able to put down 315 horsepower this seamlessly, this easily. Compared to the GR Corolla, you can feel that this does pull a little bit harder, and it does have 15 more horsepower. Weight is almost identical. They're within 100 pounds of each other. And now that we've seen how the Civic Type R handles on track, let's see how it compares to this Toyota GR Corolla Morizo edition. Time for the GR Corolla Morizo edition. This is the most hardcore version with an MSRP of $50,000. So more expensive than the Civic Type R, and you're gonna have a lot harder time finding one of these because they only make 200 per year. So say hello, ADMs. We have some really nice, beautiful, aggressive styling, forged carbon roof, forged wheels. Compared to the core and the circuit, we have some upgraded tires, both in section width and in compound. Cup 2s at 245 versus the PS4S's at 235. And this hardcore version doesn't even have rear seats. So if you're talking about practicality, there's no comparison between the Civic Type R and this, of course. This is for the hardcore enthusiast. Extra bracing in the rear. And with that out of the way, let's see how she drives. Now this is all-wheel drive. The GR4 system allows for you to choose the torque split. So right now I press on this and it goes to GR4 track, drive mode into sport, and traction control, right here, off. Now keep in mind, this is still a front-wheel drive based all-wheel drive system, and the torque split, we can even do 30-70, which we'll try afterwards, it's not full time actually. The system will engage and disengage as needed, which is why many people, including myself, have been surprised that it doesn't quite feel like it's truly 30 in the front, 70 in the rear when you select that mode. Anyways. Right off the bat, this is a much more upright seating position than in the Civic Type R. I feel like I'm sitting on top of the car rather than in it. This thing is also just super planted. Wow. I don't know if you guys can tell from camera, but you can actually change the rotation with throttle input. So it's responsive in that way, which is what you want. So mid-corner, you give it some throttle, it'll straighten out a little bit. Lift off, it'll give you some more rotation. Throttle response not quite as immediate as in the Civic Type R, and these seats are not nearly as supportive. I'm having to use my left foot to really keep myself planted here. The extra torque here, 295 pound-feet over the circuit and core's 273, is subtle, but when you combine that with the other things they've changed in this car, the suspension, upgraded dampers, monocore, the much higher spring rates, the tires, the chassis rigidity, this car is very different to drive on track versus the core and the circuits. Woohoo! There we go. See, you can get this a little bit unsettled if you really throw it around and grab it by the scruff of its neck. So this has all been in the GR4 50/50 mode. Now we're in 30/70, 30 front, 70 rear. Between the two cars, the GR Corolla is definitely a little bit more playful. Both in the 50/50 and the 30/70 torque modes, I'm able to get this thing to dance with me a little bit. At least a little bit more easily than with the Civic Type R, but both cars are incredibly stable.
The GR Corolla, believe it or not, it has the longest wheelbase out of any of the GR siblings. The GR Corolla is around 103 inches, the GR86 is at 101, and the GR Supra at 97. I bet you didn't know that. Oh yes, you can feel it dance underneath you. It's very rally car in the sense that it's not as, even though this is a very stiff car, the body control is much better than on the core and circuit. Remember, the Civic Type R is also quite stiffly sprung. So even though they're both very stiff, this still has a little bit more of a rally car personality to it compared to the Civic Type R. And what I mean by that is that you have a little bit more prominent turbo lag. You have a little bit more of a tossable nature to the vehicle. But real quick, let's talk about the inputs, the actual driving experience. I feel that the steering in the Civic Type R is a little bit better than this, but it gets corrupted by torque steer, whereas in this vehicle, you're not really feeling any torque steer. But it doesn't have much feedback, not nearly as much as I would want in a car like this. The transmissions in both vehicles are great. Neither are exceptional, but they're both great for what they are. The seats in the Civic Type R are superior, especially when you're pulling some lateral G's. And the throttle response there is also a little bit easier to predict and be smooth with, whereas the increased turbo lag and the little bit inconsistency with the throttle response here makes smooth downshifts have a little bit of a learning curve. So between the two, I mean, you have two great options. The engine I prefer on the Civic Type R. I think it has a little bit more character. It makes a little bit more power. I like the sound and the way it behaves at the top end. This has a little bit more turbo lag, and the sound, there's so many times where I'm hitting the rev limiter because I can't even hear the engine, especially when you're on track. Overall though, which one is more fun? Which one is more engaging and rewarding to drive? If it were my money, man, it's really hard to say because both are so good. Again, the Morizo is near impossible to get, but just for the sake of this thought exercise, if you could get either this or the Civic Type R at MSRP, if it were my money, I'd probably go with this, just for the fun factor alone. So you're losing practicality. Styling is, I actually think the Civic Type R is a little bit more my cup of tea in terms of styling. I don't know if this is gonna age as well as that Civic Type R. But the way that this can put power down, the way how capable it is, how it's a little bit more willing to dance with you at the limit and rotate and not just be, I mean, part of that is because it's not front wheel drive, right? So there are some benefits to an all wheel drive platform that you can't escape with a front wheel drive platform. But I know that me saying that is probably heresy to some of you guys. So let me know what you guys think. Would you choose Civic Type R, FL5, or the GR Corolla Morizo edition, assuming you could get them at MSRP? Is this worth the price premium all the way up at $50K MSRP? Subscribe if you haven't already, my friends. Much love. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in that next one.